I heard that their performances are failing them now. You are getting free by every word, every step, and every decision you make that fully honors your truth. My name is Solara. I am a seer. I am a code keeper. I am a breaker of illusions. I am a liberator of those who have been wrongfully spiritually bound. I am a timeline reinstator, a grid restorer, and a new earth being, and as my beloved likes to refer to me, a spiritual data scientist. If you don't like diving deep, then you don't go on slipped and fallen into the wrong waters, because we go deep here. But feel free to towel yourself off and find yourself another pool or another channel with your own depth preference. But please don't try to change who I am or what I stand for when you can just change the channel. Okay? You are welcome here. You are welcome here for as long as you are in alignment with who I am, the message, and what it is that I am here to bring. And you are here to support the mission of freeing innocent beings from the false matrix. So let's get into the message for today. Their performances are failing them now. You are getting free by every word, step, and decision you make that honors your truth. You are getting free by making those uncomfortable who are determined to keep you stuck in silence or stuck in that looping persona that they've gotten so used to you living or abiding by, which maybe is part of the shedding of your survival persona that you needed to get on in the false matrix, but it was never you. It wasn't you in your fullness, in your full expression, in your power. It just wasn't you, right? And for as long as you were living, in that way, you were supported, right? But you were living a lie that was manufactured for the perpetuation of their ignored wounds and the false security they built to keep from facing their own souls. So there is huge narcissistic template collapses that are occurring. And I want to be very clear when I say narcissistic template collapses that are occurring, because the whole false matrix was based upon this narcissist victim paradigm that is so amplified right now, and we see it everywhere. People are talking about narcissism, and instead of understanding and overstanding that the behaviors of humans right now is down to those narcissistic templates that existed within all of us, because we were programmed into different roles within the narcissistic victim template scenarios where we played all parts at some point. Instead of recognizing that, there's a lot of finger pointing. And yes, there are some people who are, what we would call narcissist. They register high in that lack of self-awareness. But at the end of the day, that energy existed within us all because it was at the very core of the false matrix's program. And the more that we're able to understand and overstand that we were a part of keeping those templates alive, even through our own victimization. And I'm not victim shaming, I'm not saying you chose to be victimized, but I am saying that all of us were contributing to that template while we were asleep. And as such, when the narcissistic template collapses, we begin to see all the more, if we are willing to go there. That's key. If you're willing to dive deep, we are able to see all the ways we are still ascribing in some way to those roles and personas. And so this narcissistic template collapse, it definitely is, more evident in beings who have a high degree narcissism. There is this narcissistic collapse that's occurring right now, but it's not only in them, it's also in you, it's in me. It's those remnants of energies that were still connected to those templates where we still have wounds to resolve based upon that. So what do I mean by that? Some of us were so groomed and programmed and conditioned into a role, whether that role was to be the scapegoat, the martyr, or to take on people-pleasing, fawning habits, fight or flight behaviors. It doesn't matter. We were so deeply programmed that the imprinting of that, it exists within us very unconsciously. In other words, there are ways that we have been behaving unconsciously that we really thought was connected to the truth of our real persona, and this is what is needing to crumble right now. Every way we've accepted fictions about ourselves, and I'm not only talking about your beliefs, I'm even talking about your feelings, because that's how deep it goes. And when you're in Cancer and Leo season, it is a grand clearing of the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is such an important energy port because it is where you begin to project who you are in truth, or in the case of the false matrix, your heart chakra was overburdened with the remnants of emotional trauma and wounds that were unprocessed. So what you were projecting into the world was not who you actually were. And what you project, you call back more in of. So, that whole, if you've been abused, you attract more abuse. That's not true. But if you have been abused, and the trauma that you've been through because of abuse, you haven't been able to work through it. You haven't been haven't been afforded the wisdom or the tools or the recognition of what it is you've actually been put through, and you're not able to dismantle, divide, and remove yourself from the lies and the narratives that abuse likes to inflict upon you so that you play that role. If you're not able to do that, then the remnants of that heaviness, the densities that are formed in your fields because of the trauma and the abuse, they become the things that overlay your heart chakra, and that's what you project into the world, which is why beings who have been abused, we tend to be, before we heal, more vulnerable to that calling in that kind of energy, not because that's our desire to attract it, but because that literally is what our energy field is broadcasting. So I'm going to get into a bit of a download I got about that, but I want to finish speaking on what it is I have here before my phone times out on me again. So narcissistic templates, they're collapsing everywhere. And as they collapse, everywhere we are seeing the roots of what was always there. We are seeing the roots of what was always there, and hidden beneath the illusions, the trauma, the gaslighting, and the performance. So a lot of, again, like I said, their performances are failing them. All of the performative ways that people have been getting by and pretending to be something they're not, in spirit and in truth, the frequencies of the planet do not support that anymore. We are rising more powerfully into the age of Aquarius, where authenticity reigns. And authenticity is not performative, because that's what we've been seeing up until now. And that doesn't mean you can't present yourself with flair. It is Leo season. You should absolutely amplify your power, your beauty when you are presenting yourself in forums like this. I'm not talking about that kind of amplifying of your truth. I'm talking about people who walk around performing, pretending to be something they're not, which in all frankness, we all were doing in the false matrix, but we were put in different positions for the purpose of the narcissistic templates, the narcissistic victim dynamics that were at the core and the root of the dramas that we were cast in. And a lot of us were cast in supporting roles, or we had one line in our own lives because other beings felt they needed to be stars and to perform by stealing other people's energy. When the reality is we all have the power to be great. We all have the power to rise, for as long as we're doing it based upon our own source-encoded truth, and we're not siphoning other beings in order to do so. So there was a lot of performance that was happening, a lot of performance, a lot of appearance, a lot of doing things for the sake of, you know, how other people think of you, right? And a lot of that is coming down. And you might notice it in yourself in ways where you have less fucks to give. Maybe you already thought you had 0 fucks, and through this you are recognizing, oh, wait a minute, there were a few fucks that were hidden, and boom, you know, just like that. It's like, oh, I did have a few more fucks to give. Let me deal with those. Let me just handle it right quick. So I truly don't have any more fucks to give. So really that's kind of what we're in, you know, we're in this season of like recognizing where we still apparently had fucks to give, and therefore, you know, dealing with ourselves. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's important to, you know, care about other people, but not to the detriment of your ability to show up in the world and be who you are, and to be who I am. And so a lot of that right now, we're getting to like the crux of it. And some of it isn't even you, like I was saying in the beginning, it isn't even you. These are things that have been ingrained and imprinted upon you ancestrally. These are habits and behaviors and thoughts you never even thought to challenge because they were so imprinted in you, because that's who you were supposed to be. And you're waking up maybe and you're recognizing, wait a hot minute, this isn't who I am. This isn't actually what I think. This isn't actually how I feel. I've been feeling this, and you'll know this is you if, for example, you have these. I'm gonna focus in on feelings because we're in Leo season and the moon is in Cancer right now. So very emotional, heart feeling centric time we're in at this moment in time. So, for example, you might have had feelings, right? You might have had feelings, and oftentimes these are intense feelings. And in this time of waking up and getting to know yourself and doing the shadow work, no matter what you seem to do, no matter how much you try to take accountability, you try to shift, you try to clear, you couldn't fully get to the crux of why you couldn't shift the density of that emotion. And you thought it was your own. You thought it was your own trauma. If you healed this, if I heal my childhood wounds, if I heal my inner teenager, if I heal my, you know, the things that I've picked up socially, societally, systemically, you know, if I reclaim who I am, you know, in spirit and in truth, and yet you still couldn't get those feelings to budge. They would keep on coming up time and time again. That can be indicative that you have become a storehouse for traumas that don't belong to you, and oftentimes they're matrilineal in nature, because the repetition of energy, the storage of energy, it travels through the feminine. It travels through the mitochondria. This is why, you know, even scientifically speaking, it's said that we can hold the trauma of up to 3 generations of the women who came before us. In other words, not only can you hold the trauma of your mother, but your grandmother and your great-grandmother. And I would say it goes even way beyond the 3 generations, in my opinion. What does that mean exactly? That means encoded within your own emotional body and your nervous system exist reactions and remembrances of traumas that you actually never lived through yourself. You have carried emotional weight that other beings who came before you were not able to process, and so it has fallen upon you. And you're not even aware. So all of the trying to deal with your childhood issues, your, you know, teenage years, all of this stuff, it's not going to actually shift that deep imprinting, because that actually has programmed your very genetics. And it's very purposeful. The false matrix created it this way. And before I go farther, I want to give a shout out to Mia Foster of the Clearing Circle. You guys can find her on Instagram if you're interested. I've been working with Mia and she's amazing. She and her team are very gifted in going into the structures that have upheld the systems and the cycles that have persisted, that have kept us all in loops. So we do the work, I do the work very specifically in helping you guys to decode the truth of what your real lived experience has been. But what Mia does with her group is really cool, is because they go in and they find the structural, foundational designs upon which those stories began and have been built upon, whether they exist in you because of you, or whether, like I said, ancestrally, you're holding on to stuff and stories that you shouldn't be holding on to. And as I've said before, like, some of us were binded into bloodlines for the purpose of being a battery. And so the ancestral trauma that you hold within your fields and your foundations is going to be extremely deep, because it goes back millennia. A lot of these bindings occurred at the fall of the previous golden age and the inception of the false matrix. And you've been stuck whenever you incarnated onto the earth, reincarnating sometimes in just one bloodline, or reincarnating into a selection of bloodlines that pass you around, much like they do in the trafficking industry in real time, passed you around to whoever wanted you for a lifetime, for the purpose of draining your battery. And so Mia, you can connect with her, I think, through Facebook. Her group is called The Clearing Circle. I connected with her through Threads on Instagram. She's there on Threads under Mia, M-I-A, .y, .foster, F-O-S-T-E-R. So she's really been helping me to understand things that I've been seeing, but I didn't have the language for also. So for those of you who are very invested in understanding and comprehending how the grid structures and the grid structural foundations work that produce timelines and cycles and all of that other stuff in your reality, she's a wonderful resource. So I want to go into the download that I had a few mornings ago rather. So I've been going through my own like big clearing and integration, and I apologize that I've been a little bit flighty in my, I want to say in my attendance, but in my presence here. But those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that I practice what I preach. I don't show up here if I don't feel grounded enough to do so. And I myself have been going through a lot of clearing, a lot of integration, a lot of craziness in my own reality through these shifts too. So I apologize that I haven't been here in about 2 weeks, and I got sick also through the activating. But I want to also, because I actually, now I think about it, I haven't been on here in a while. I haven't been on here since I think around my birthday. And I want to say a big thank you to all of you who showed up and showed out for my birthday online gathering. It seems so long ago, but it was literally just 2 weeks ago. You guys made my birthday beautiful, and I really do appreciate your love. And, you know, just being there for me, it meant more. I think it meant more than you are probably aware of, those of you who showed up. So thank you so much. It really began to cement my moving into and anchoring into my new timelines, being around beings who truly celebrate me and not just tolerate. So thank you. And thank you to those of you who made birthday donations or purchased around that time. It meant a lot. Thank you so much. But the download I had was, or what I saw, the vision I had, I should say. I was in meditation, and I had woken up, 1 second. I had woken up feeling really heavy, and I'd been through a dream attack. And I was just trying to sort through my emotions and figure out what it was I was feeling. I didn't want to push it away. I didn't want to clear it away. I didn't want to send it back. I didn't want to do any of that shit. I just wanted to get to the bottom of why I was feeling that way, because it was a very familiar feeling, and I was, in all frankness, just tired of it. So when I closed my eyes and I started to tune into myself, and I went into my soul, And I started to ask myself questions. What is this? Why is this here? Why is this emotional state that I don't want? And I've done so much work. Why does it keep on recurring? Why is there access here with all the work I've done? And mind you, I'm also going through a lot of like energy work that I'm doing with other beings that are helping me, Mia included. So I am purging, and these things are not just coming up because they're like attacks. They're coming up to either show me what's been in my fields, or coming up to thwart what is the process of what is happening. But what I began to see was really interesting, because I started to see the structure of what we would call the fascia. And I start to see it like webs. But then I also see beyond my body, because the fascia would be like the layer, like you know, over your, between your skin and your is it your muscular and your skeletal structures, like the fascia is right over that, right? And so I begin to see the structure of the fascia, which is almost like webbing. I see it beyond my body, right? And in all frankness, a few days before, I'd been listening. I don't know if you guys tune into Gary from Human Garage. I watch his stuff from time to time, because I'm also trained in, you know, holistic health, holistic nutrition. You know, I'm a naturopathic chef and a herbalist. So all of this stuff on the body and movement and natural remedies, it's my thing. So I watch the Human Garage here on YouTube, and he was talking about how sometimes the things that are going on in your body and that you're holding on to in your fascia, it actually is environmental. It's not in the body. You feel it in the body, but it's actually outside. And when you shift something environmentally, when you, for some people, when you move away from a certain place, then sometimes all of a sudden that pain, that illness, it suddenly spontaneously heals, right? And so I had, you know, I'd heard that a few days ago, a few days before, but in all frankness, I wasn't really thinking about it. It came up to me after what I saw, because I literally saw the fascial structures like a web, and they were moving out of the body, and they were part of your grid body. They were part of your toroidal field. They were part of your cosmological structures that connect you with the rest of the cosmos, right? Because even though you can't see it, there are a lot of lines horizontally, vertically, of energy that flow, not just your main column, but through you, around you. That's what your toroidal field is. Think of yourself almost like a globe, you know, with the lines of longitude and latitude, and what those lines actually are and what they mean, which I got another download about that. I don't think I'm going to get into that today fully, but those, I've talked about it somewhat back in February when I was getting a download all about the time-space continuum. But the lines of longitude and latitude are how different cosmic energies are able to stream on the planet and free flow when they're not under false matrix control, to the point where I believe that the way that you teleport is through connecting with different longitudinal and latitudinal lines and different what we call coordinates. I believe that's part of how we used to teleport, is we could connect with every single line within the grid structure of the earth, through our grid structure, through our intention, through our minds and our hearts. But I won't get into that right now. It's a whole different rabbit hole. But I'm seeing the fascial structure. It's beyond just the body, right? And then I begin to see, like within my own fields, like all of these, the webbing structure, the webs are just like packed, layer upon layer upon layer of packed, almost like webs. to the point where the webs become really thick and dense, and they start to resemble less like a spider web and more like a cobweb. You know how webs over time, when they're left and they become cobwebs, they become like dense, right? That's what it looked like in my system. And I started to ask myself, what is that? And at the time, the moon was in Gemini, right? Which then I got another download that I spoke about in my on solar.xyz in Sundays, in Sunrise Salutation or Moonrise Musing, one of them. But I spoke about this because what I began to see was that webbing was kind of designed to try to keep me stuck. So if you've ever had stiffness in your body and you lose the full mobility of being able to move a certain body part the way you know you should be able to move it, and that not only causes like issues in terms of your mobility, but then it also can start to cause pain in that area of the body or in other parts of the body. You can begin to have different symptoms of sickness or pain or like imbalances in totally different parts of your body because of the fascial buildup in one part. And what I began to realize was that these webs are discordant, how should I put this? They are the foundation of our discordant timelines. Those timelines that we've been creating or have been created through us or manifested through us that don't match who we are, what we call inorganic timelines. The fabric for the creation of those timelines was those web structures. So what were those web structures? When I asked myself, what was I seeing? I was told, this is what happens when you know who you are, even if it's not on a conscious level, because your own soul knows. A lot of the time, your own body knows. Your own cells have been programmed into your truth. And then when an outside energy comes and tries to change the way you think, tries to change your thoughts, to adhere to another story, a story that contradicts what you've been actually sent here to do, what your cells were attuned for you to accomplish from the beginning. When a thought, your own thoughts become overtaken by someone else's command over who it is you are or who it is they need you to be, that causes friction, because what that is, it's a form of it is self-betrayal. It's not even a form of self-betrayal, it is self-betrayal. And your emotional body registers it as such, and it starts to change your very crystalline structure into something that is discordant. So I'm being reminded here, think about I always forget his name, but think about the Japanese scientist who did that study, that research study with water, and how he, would play, he would look at water underneath a microscope to check out its crystalline structures. And he would look at different types of water, and he would look at environmental factors. But very specifically, what made him most famous was how he looked at sound, the effect of sound and frequency on water, right? But not sound and frequency, because it also carries emotion. So for example, he looked at water where classical music had been played, and it begins to create these beautiful geometric sequences that are repetitive. He looked at the way water looked if something, positive was spoken over it. Same thing, beautiful crystalline geometric structures that replicate easily. He looked at what water looked like when heavy metal was blasted, or when words of hate were spewed at it. And those crystalline structures started to become distorted, and they weren't replicating properly, right? They were replicating, but in distortion. And so your emotional fields are connected to the element of water. You are an elemental being. And when your mental energy, whether that's your own thoughts, other people's thoughts, other people's words, in general programming, contradicts who you are structurally in your own waters. Because remember, your waters hold, your cells hold the truth of who you are. Always have. So when you use your mind and you allow other beings to use your mind to pull you into stories and narratives, and oftentimes to gaslight you out of the truth of who you are causing schisms within your own molecular structure. You are causing the beautiful crystalline geometry that should replicate within you and through you. You are causing that to go into distortion. And what I was seeing in those webs was the effects of the layers of distortion that had been built over time because of trauma, because of the trauma born of self-betrayal, because of the trauma born of beings gaslighting you, because of the trauma born of you believing or thinking yourself to be something that contradicts your own soul. It has an effect. It has an effect metaphysically, and it has an effect physically. And what I was seeing in the energy body was the distortion of crystalline structures that were layer upon layer, replicating themselves, but replicating themselves in this webbing that was like blocking the true flow of true emotional energy. And I'm going to bring you back again to what this season is about. It's about clearing and reclaiming your heart as the ultimate stargate, so that what you are putting out in the world and you're calling back is actually an organic reflection of who you actually are, as opposed to the inorganic projection of the stored trauma and wounds. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so why did I want to get into all of that again? I know I wanted to share that dream. Okay, so part of, for me, like seeing that and being able to share that with you, part of that is my ability to now see things more clearly as they actually are structurally, because that's my gift. One of my gifts is that I can go in and I can see certain patterns, energies. I can see those things and begin to make sense of why they exist in the way that they exist, right? But I've never seen that deeply into how trauma causes literal webbing structures to grow in the energy field that then block and pull you and weigh you down and keep your energy flow stuck and keep you ultimately, your light body, like unable to properly function. So I'm saying this now because part of this is because the very narcissistic templates that supported performance, appearance, because performance and appearance, what that allows for is the perpetuation of illusion. And with the illusions that had to be upheld in the false matrix, everyone had their part to play that ultimately went against the truth of who they were. And these layers that I'm seeing, those are partly what goes on in the energy field when we go against ourselves. But I also believe that this is why even death and disease enter into the equation. Because if you've been rolling with me for a while, you'll know I've said it before, I'll say it again. We're not supposed to die from death and disease. That's not the source's plan for us. That's a result of being in the false matrix and looping, constantly going through looping, trauma looping that ultimately causes these distortions that break down our energy field from the outside in until we get to our actual body structure, and that starts to break down too. And we call it disease because of the way that the cells respond, and the way that we become open to certain pathogens, viruses, bacteria, parasites. But really, all of that is a reflection of the full breakdown of the energy field that has occurred, because your ultimate protection, the ultimate way you protect your energy is how? What is the ultimate form of protection? Being rooted in who you are, being rooted in your source encoded truth. Because the more you're rooted in who you are, the less permeable your energy field is. So the more you are taught and programmed to go against yourself, to put on performances, to be a part of the narcissistic victimizer template play, the more you play that role, whether it was even the role of the scapegoat, the martyr. This doesn't always have to be the position of the narcissist. There were all manner of archetypes within the false matrix that we were assigned as if that those were the only choices we had. We were given the illusion of choice and freedom when that wasn't the case. The more that you move against yourself, the more you lose your protections. When you lose your protections, those parasitic energies and entities can come in and take over, and the more you're programmed and conditioned to feed them based upon acting away from yourself, the more you break down your own structures on all planes. And they knew this in the false matrix too, and I keep on being shown, like, I don't remember what Matrix movie it was, but where was it the Matrix movie with, it was, I think it might have been like the third, or I forget. I haven't seen the most recent one a few years ago, but the one where they have those metal octopus things that just go in and start to destroy the computing, right? The ships, goes in and just starts to like dismantle everything. That's what occurs energetically for us every time we get, not every time, but when we get to a place where we have completely lost the way back to ourselves, because we've been so deeply programmed away from ourselves, and we've made decisions, and we've thought thoughts, and we've produced timelines that have replicated that lie. The more we get bombarded with these energies and these entities that ultimately will power us down. And that's what sickness and death are, even if it shows itself up through an organ doing something, or through cellular malfunction. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's an invasion into your energy field that has reached your body because of the power of it, right? So the beautiful thing about that is, and only take this if it resonates, that all of that can also, with diligence, possibly be reversed, right? So again, I want to go back to the fact that you are getting free by making those uncomfortable who are determined to keep you stuck in a persona, in a fiction, in a narrative that doesn't fit who you are. And really, you are doing them a favor too, because the discomfort you're putting them in is an opportunity for them to stop playing the part also, right? So those who are stuck on still wanting to perform, be performative, and think that that's what's going to continue to help them get by in the world, all of that is falling apart. And as you rise into your truth and you make them uncomfortable, you give them an opportunity to rise into the frequency they need to be in to also go into the new earth should they choose to do the work. But a lot of them won't, because, to be quite frank, to have gotten this far in ascension and to still have no compunction to begin to go within at this stage, I'm not saying most people are without hope, but many of them are, because they continually overwrite what their own souls are trying to show them. That sometimes it gets to a point where their own judgment is going to be like the grand exposure that comes, and they're stuck in a reality that they have created for themselves by going against themselves, that they were given the key to come out of. So this is where you're going to start seeing a lot in the spiritual community of beings who are still not really doing the work and are using spirituality as a mask and as an aesthetic. It's so aesthetic, right? So aesthetic to be deep and to pull tarot and to collect crystals and to go on retreats and do plant medicine. It's so aesthetic, right? And I'm not knocking any of those things. I do all of it. Well, I have yet to do plant medicine, but I've done all of the other things, I'm not knocking that. Those are tools. But so many self-proclaimed gurus and enlightened beings are just riding the wave of what they know is going to become quote-unquote popular, but they think that they can get in based upon the false matrix principles of pretending and performing, instead of doing the actual fucking shadow work and the fucking integration and going through the pain of the alchemy, right? Going through the pain of the alchemy in order to actually be reborn into who they actually are. And what we're going through in the world right now, the pain that the planet herself is going through, and that humanity is also going through because of a bunch of fucking assholes also that don't want to let go of their tyranny. Beings don't want performance. We're not here to be entertained. The time to be entertained solely has passed. Beings want a way forward, want a way out of the dysfunction and the discord that is not only going on around them, but within them. Because the discord and the dysfunction that is happening externally is just a reflection of our internal human condition. And people are waking up to this. And so all the fannying around in costumes and pretending to be something that they haven't embodied, it's not going to do shit for anyone. It might have been fun in the beginning when people are just waking up, or, this is fun. It's not fun anymore when it's a life and death situation. Because it is. Quite literally. Okay, let me take a sip of tea. And let me get into some cards. Oh, I think my Oracle of Shadow and Light is calling me. Let me share with you what's in my tea blend. For those of you who don't know, I am trained in Western medical herbalism. So in my tea today, I've got MULLEIN, Lungwort. I'll put the information below, I'll pin it. MULLEIN, Lungwort, mint, and verbena. So this is a bit of a herbal lesson for you in terms of how you can use certain herbs and teas. So MULLEIN and Lungwort don't taste very good alone. Mint gives a beautiful flavor, so does verbena. MULLEIN is beautiful for getting rid of entities that are parasitic. MULLEIN is wonderful for grounding you into your energy. MULLEIN sometimes is used for graveyard, as a substitute for graveyard dirt for people who fuck with magic in that way, and also for ancestral veneration. Lungwort is very powerful for the clearance of deep ancestral grief. Anytime you're dealing with a herb that is designed to clear your lungs are connected to Cancer in terms of zodiac connections, and your lungs hold a lot of grief. When grief is stored, it's oftentimes in the lungs. And so the clearance, any herb that works to clear out mucus, mullein is very powerful for clearing out mucus. So is lungwort, but lungwort is very powerful also for maintaining the health and the structures of the lungs too. Very great for doing the clearing, the deep clearing of ancestral grief that you've carried in your heart chakra. So mullein and lungwort. Smoking mullein, oof, my goodness. I love to smoke mullein when I'm feeling bombarded by energies and entities that I know aren't my own. It's literally like, I've smoked it before and I've felt not only the energy clear, but my spine crack back into alignment. Mullein is wonderful. It also, in herbal medicine, we do prescribe certain herbs to smoke. Mullein, when you are a smoker of other things, it's great to have mullein every now and again to clear your lungs, to help clear your lungs, because smoking in and of itself is not bad for as long as you're not, indulging in it to the point of addiction. Okay, what else? Mint. I love mint. Mint's a road opener. Mint restores your flow, especially emotionally. Mint works to not only open your roads, but to light up the path so you can see where you're going. Verbena, also known as van, is a herb that is great for luck, drawing in more opportunities, drawing in more fortune. Some people also use it if they're doing work with the goddess Isis, the true goddess, not the fake false matrix goddess Isis that a lot of these performative beings are plugged into. But yes, so that's what's in my herbal arsenal. I just thought I'd start including that if I'm drinking tea, like sharing with you what herbs are inspiring me right now on the journey because of what it is that we're clearing. Okay, so lungwort, mullein, mint, verbena. Very funny. It's time for a treat. Candy cane angel. And I say very funny because at the bottom of the deck we have Angel of Time, working too hard. Working too hard. So I feel like this is coming up because literally the way that we are experiencing time is wanting to shift. Because everything in the false matrix was designed to put you into survival mode, designed to traumatize you and put you in constant fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, your nervous system is in fight or flight, in sympathetic mode. It's in, let me arm you and protect you. And when you're armed and protected, you can't be open and rested and relaxed and able to be a master over your own self and your reality. When you are living in fight or flight, you're always subject to the external things that are always, at any given point, something outside of you is dictating your own body, like how you should feel in your own body. And all of that shit is it's real, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's as real as we allow for it to be, in terms of how we allow for it to have an effect on us. And I was mentioning before about like time travel and teleporting and latitude latitudinal and longitudinal lines within your own energy field and within the globe also. And I really do feel like we are being helped to heal our relationship with time and what it actually means. And what it actually means. I don't feel like the way we've been programmed to believe time works is real. And your experience of time doesn't have to be real. Have you ever tried bending time? Have you done that before? Where you have to get somewhere and you're in a rush and you extend the time and you somehow make it on time, and purely by making the decision that you will be. Or you know how they say time flies when you're having fun, and it doesn't. It's like a drudgery when things are really like bad. And I don't know if you've noticed recently, but it feels like time as the mechanism they use to control us in the false matrix is speeding up, and it feels like in its like picking up speed, it's about to crash out. And I feel like the more we don't allow ourselves to be taken into the narratives around how time is supposed to be used to put us into fear, the more we rebel against that, the more we allow ourselves grace, and we don't give in to the fear mongering. And this is an internal choice. It doesn't mean that you stop doing what you need to do, but you change your attitude around it. This is what is causing the time experiences we've had in the false matrix and the mechanisms of time used to keep us in fear. That's what is going to cause it to crash out. And this is Saturnian energy that's been misused. It's been misused. And I've been feeling that a lot recently, like an influx of that Saturn distorted energy, or an attempt for an influx, but it not being able to stick anymore. The Saturnian magic, the way it shows up in my reality is interesting. Sometimes it's with moths, very specific moths, and it depends on how that moth is. It's like you have to use your discernment, because obviously not all moths are bad, or monitoring spirits or Saturnian magic, but there's a very specific type of moth that tends to show up, and it always tends to show up on a Saturday in my reality, and that's the day of Saturn. So there's that. Attacks that happen recurrently on a Saturday tend to be Saturnian magic. And then also one of the big markers of Saturnian magic, and I know that other beings have attested to this, like clients have told me they've had the same experience, is that black gooey substance that somehow finds its way into your home on everything. And sometimes it just concentrates on one room, the room that you are in, or the room you feel most safe in, or the room that you do whatever, like it's that one place, and everywhere else it's not, and that can be Saturnian magic also. But either way, that the Saturnian spells that they used, how they use Saturn's power against us, it feels like that is powering down and crashing out as we choose to reclaim our time. Okay? So again, this goes back to that part of the message where I'm talking about how the download, where, by every word, you're getting free by every word, step, and decision you make that honors your truth. As you honor your truth in terms of how time is supposed to work for you in your organic beingness, as opposed to what it is you've been told time is supposed to be, the more that you align with that, the more that you are reprogramming the time-space continuum into your organic timelines. And the more of us that do that, the more we upset the falling structures of the false matrix that needs to completely crash out at this point. I hope that makes sense. Okay, where else should I go? I think I'm going to go into the tarot and call it a day. I will be hosting this weekend my Liberating Legacy groups on recovering your power from your family grid systems. I've done this group 3 times in the month of July, and each time was quite a powerful coming together of beings, and a lot of stuff that was happening to try to stop those meetings from occurring, which is always indicative of breakthroughs. So I'm going to do that again. I've had some people ask me about it. I had some people ask me to do it in the month of August because I couldn't do it in July. So I will be doing it this Saturday, the 23rd of August, and Sunday, the 24th of August. I will be putting all that information up on the community board. If you are registered on solar.xyz, you will also receive the information on how you can purchase your place. And I will also be putting it in the description box in the comment section below if you would like to join. There will be 7 spots available for each day. Okay? Alrighty. Okay. Four-card reading. Cards are face down still. I haven't looked at them yet. Bottom of the deck. By Jove, it's the Star. I love it. This is Aquarian energy. Aquarius. We are, I think like maybe 10 days out of the last full moon, which was a full moon in Aquarius, and we are moving now towards the new moon in Virgo, which is happening, I believe, this Saturday, the 23rd. We have the full moon in Virgo, and it's opening, not just the moon entering, the new moon in Virgo, not just the moon entering into Virgo, but how it's occurring. So the moon and the sun are entering into Virgo around the same time. So we have, when the sun enters into Virgo at 0 degrees, the moon will be meeting the sun there at 0 degrees. That's a grand 0-0 portal. That's grand reset energy. And why is this so important in Virgo? And I will be getting into this in depth, as I always do, on my other channel, Solar Arises, for the new moon in Virgo Tarot Astrology Ascension report that I will be posting in a couple of days. Why is this important? Reset energy in the energy of Virgo. Well, let's think about it for just a quick hot second. First and foremost, the South Node is in Virgo, so we are entering into eclipse season, lovies. We are entering into eclipse season, okay? Secondly, we are in a number 9 year. So that is Sagittarius energy astrologically, but it connects us to the number 9 card in the tarot, which is the Hermit, which is Virgo. And one of Virgo's teachings, or how it heals us, Virgo's medicine, is it teaches us how to liberate our energy fields for the purpose of our own sovereign use. Virgo is one of the grand liberators of self in the zodiac, and it's through Sagittarius we can then walk out our liberation. Okay, so big energy. Virgo is always a big season for the soul, the alignment of the soul, and for the preparation of the timelines that are to come. Always, every single year. Virgo is one of the greatest teachers in the zodiac, hence the reason why, astronomically speaking, the sun will not enter into Virgo until September, and it will stay there for about, a lot of the time, a month and a half to 2 months, depending on the year. So in other words, the sun tends, out of all of the signs, the sun tends to stay in Virgo the longest, because Virgo is here to teach us how to properly wield the power of our energy, and also the power of protecting and maintaining our boundaries by being true to self. Okay, so Virgo is also connected to legacy. True legacy is born from sovereignty. True legacy. Okay, and true legacy is not money, it's not having a building in your name, it's not being remembered in their false history books. True legacy is how you've left the earth in a more prosperous state frequentially because you've existed. And sometimes that will be, that will be materialized through money you leave behind, the legacy you leave your family, the work you've done. Yeah, those are tangible things. But on an energetic level, true legacy is that you've left the world a better place by living in your sovereign state and by using that sovereignty to replenish and amplify harmony on the earth, which is why a lot of the legacy in the false matrix is false, because a lot of it is performative. You can have all the money, leave all the money, be in the history books, be in the museums, be in the Smithsonian, have a building named after you. You can have all of that, and you have left the world in a worse state because you've done it all by harming yourself and others. So the star, back to regular scheduled programming. But not really. The star at the bottom of the, and I lift it up, and what do we have here? Looky, we've got justice. I love it. But let's get into the star. The star is all about when you become so much in alignment with your truth, you start to wake up so deeply that the level of alignment you reach allows, the level of authenticity you reach allows for the cosmos to begin to assist you. You see, the cosmos is a reflection of your soul. And for as long as you are going against yourself, your soul is constantly trying to wake you up. So it's really difficult to get rewards in the state of going against yourself. But when you start to rise into your truth and you start to live life on your own terms in your sovereignty, then you start to get the fortune of the cosmos coming online and coming on board with you, because that's what they want for you too. And this is what the star speaks of, that alignment. Okay, so the overarching theme, Seven of Swords, that's some shady, sneaky, shisty shit, right? The Seven of Swords, shady, sneaky, shisty shit. The Seven of Swords. You like my S's, the alliteration, seven swords. Shady, sneaky, shisty shit. Anyway, the Seven of Swords. These are the things, the sneaky ways. Yeah, you can apply it to other people, but first, it don't really matter what other people are doing, because they're always just amplifying or reflecting what's actually going on in your own energy field, right? So the Seven of Swords is here to show you where maybe other beings are trying to pull the wool over your eyes, doing shady, sneaky, shisty shit. But really, those scenarios occur in your reality for as much as you are doing the same to yourself in some way, shape, or form. So what do I mean by that? How many times have you been in a situation where you've known that something was going down and you talked yourself out of it, right? And you sure as shit find out something's going down. And if you had listened to yourself sooner, you would have saved yourself. It may have been less painful. It may have still been painful, but less. You get what I'm saying? So that not listening to yourself is an act of self-betrayal. It's like, oh wait, my third eye saw something, but because I haven't seen it yet with my other two eyes, let me pull the wool over my third eye and pretend like I didn't see it. Yeah? Nobody's done that but me? I don't believe you. I'm joking, but we do that, right? We do that to try to save ourselves pain. But when we do that, what we are actually doing is we are building false peace. We are building and contributing to the performative aspects of the false matrix and its narcissistic templates that were designed to keep us in illusion and disenfranchised and victimized and not in the fullness of our power. So right now, there are things that we are being asked to be very, very real about, in the sense of what it is we don't want to let go of. We don't want to let go of because of maybe false security. Maybe we don't want to, face the hurt. Maybe we're afraid of something. There's so many reasons. But as we're able to discern where it is that we're being co-conspirators in our own, position of having the wool pulled over our eyes, the more we're able to recognize and accept the truth. Because the Seven of Swords, remember, the swords is here. The swords is the suit in the tarot that deals with power struggles, and they're power struggles where there's something, someone, groups, etc., wanting you to use your own mind against you, or using their minds to pull you out of the position of authority over yourself. But the swords also represent the journey to truth. The journey to truth. And the Seven of Swords is an Aquarian card. It's the 20 to 29 degrees of Aquarius, which means that the Aquarian energy, the point of where we need to garner this divine favor that is naturally ours as we're true to ourselves. The block right now is something that we're being shown that maybe we don't really want to accept. We don't want to accept. And a lot of the time, this will be a way of thinking. This will be a way that you have carried yourself in accordance with your own beliefs. And bear in mind, this isn't always like other people doing stuff to you. This is like the self-sabotaging thoughts, self-sabotaging mindsets you have that are conducive to your own blocks. It's in the overarching theme. Let's see what's in the challenge. In the challenge is the Six of Pentacles. This is being fair. This is being just. This is being true. And this is how you show up in real time. How you show up in real time. You know, our perception is what creates our reality, but we always have the ability to shift our perception into something that is more beneficial for who we're becoming. Because a lot of the time we're trained to perceive based upon blind spots and wounds, and even as we do the work of exposing the wounds, our perceptions still don't move past who we were when we were wounded. And I'm learning this week, which is why I'm learning it on a deeper level this week, which is why I can talk to you about it. Like, I have this thing where I'm beginning to realize it was really imprinted in me because of ancestry. And I can be very defensive, self-defensive. And that's because I've been through a lot of stuff where I didn't have my guard up. And in not having my guard up, I hurt myself. in big ways. And so I'm very guarded. I'm very defensive to the point where it blocks me sometimes. And I had a lot of anger towards my mother for the same behavior that I wasn't recognizing in the same way in myself. And I had a reckoning with that over the past few days, because I began to realize that a lot of the issues I have with other people, especially the people that have hurt me, and this doesn't take away that they should have never hurt me and that I'm not restoring a relationship with beings who have no respect for me, or it doesn't take any of that away. But what I had to come and see was that the part of me that was in such rejection, that was rejecting that part of her so much, because it caused me so much pain also. And that's just one aspect. That was in me too. And on some level I knew that, but I didn't know how deep it went. I didn't know how deep it went until recently, because of my own life experiences and how much it's been a fucking hindrance. You know? And so a lot of the time, especially when we're dealing with really gnarly parental situations where they've hurt us so badly and continue to do so, even when we tell them, you know, and they have no desire to really mend the bridge that they ultimately burned down from the beginning, but they have every desire to perform and pretend and to play roles and to have you play a role. It can be really difficult to see out of the hurt into the parts where you're the same. And I'm a very self-aware person. I see a lot of my traits in other beings I don't like. I can take full responsibility when I find those things, when I see those things. But I saw it this week on such a deep level that I missed before. And I missed it because of my own hurt and parts of myself that were sealed off because of the pain. And when I started to do more work at getting to like dismantling the foundation of that pain structure, and like I said, working with Mia, what I began to be able to connect with and see was so much more than I'd been able to access before. And it was important for me, not because I have no intention of remedying relationships with beings who don't want to respect me and my power. That's not it at all. But it helped me to get a piece of myself back. It helped me to get a piece of myself back that I don't think I've ever actually, in this lifetime, and maybe in even lifetimes before this, I've had full access to. And that was the gift. That was like the most important thing. And so I feel like this is what many of us are being shown. The Seven of Swords, not for nothing, is also your ability to see your blind spots, the things that have kept you gaslighting yourself, or being easily gaslit, or being susceptible to other people running your show and your drama. You know, like when you are that imprinted, especially when it's a parental scenario, you know, when you're that impacted by their behavior, their choices, then in some way they still have control over you emotionally. And what has been occurring for me has been the severance of that control over my narrative that I so badly wanted to let go of, and I've been working to let go of, but I didn't altogether know how. I reached a layer within myself where I could see something that was so deeply buried that I'd only been able to access the surface, and I could get a part of myself back I'd lost because of the hurt and because of the way the hurt kept dragging me through timelines that I wanted to escape from, but I couldn't. You know? I hope that makes sense. I hope it helps someone else get free too. What you need to be paying attention to. The Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles is Capricorn energy. I neglected to say that the Six of Pentacles is Taurus energy. The second decan of Taurus, 10 to 19 degrees. Four of Pentacles is last decan of Capricorn, 20 to 29 degrees. So Aquarius and Capricorn, neighbor signs, Saturnian energy, both of them. This is about coming into order, right? So with the Four of Pentacles, this is about creating structural foundations that are rooted in your value and your worth and your power. And this is what needs to be the focus. And, you know, so much of our focus has been about our hurt and the continual exploitation of that hurt, because it's been our focus because we've been in it, deep in it. But what it feels like is happening right now, or what wants to happen, is the shifting of those old stories of heartbreak, shifting it into new timelines of victory. And this is what I mean when I say, you know, like, that's why I deliberately chose to spend my solar return the way I did. I deliberately chose to open it up because I've been so guarded. You know, I deliberately chose to open it up and to call in beings that I knew wanted to be there to celebrate who I have been to them. Because those are my timelines. Those are my new earth timelines. In the false matrix, I spent many birthdays around beings where I was miserable, performing, pretending, feeling the discomfort within my own soul, because even though I couldn't admit it to myself, I knew that the celebration was an act. And then I spent many birthdays over the past couple of years alone with myself, learning to love myself, learning to reverence my own existence apart from anyone else except for my children. I've done that too. And now it was time to walk into a new legacy, a new reality of opening up my birthday to those who would want to attend, even though it was online, and start this new legacy, this new reality in my life, these new timelines where opening myself allows for beings to come who ultimately want to celebrate who I am, want to amplify my being, want to, celebrate my existence. And that was an amazing experience, but this is, birthday or no birthday, this is what is here for all of us right now, to make that transition out of the pain stories, the pain timelines, and begin to open self up, clearing out the narratives that keep us blocked and closed off, to create foundations that are rooted in our worth and our power, and to be protective of that too, to be protective, to hold on to what is true and what is valuable to you, to not be duped, of what it is that you deserve. All of that, absolutely, because when you put the 6 and the 4 of Pentacles together, you got the 10 of Pentacles, which is Virgo. It's the last decan of Virgo when we have the second new moon. This is why Virgo season is about to be crunk. We got 2 new moons, at 0 and 29 degrees, bookend new moons. And then we got the eclipse season beginning smack in the middle with the full moon in Pisces. So we got a moon occurring in the 8 of Pentacles, we got a moon occurring in the 9 of Pentacles, and we got a moon occurring in the 10 of Pentacles. No, let me get this right. We've got a moon occurring in the 8 of Pentacles. We've got the sun in Virgo, the full moon in Pisces, occurring at the 9 of Pentacles. And then we've got the sun and the moon at 29 degrees, that's the 10 of Pentacles. That very rarely happens, that you have the sun meeting the moon 3 times in a sign, and therefore having the full 3 cards in the tarot. This is a completion, this is a reset, this is the rise, the materialization of new legacies on the earth. The timelines are here, not just the feeling, not just the preemptive build-up, but the literal expression of the energy materially. Guidance. Knight of Cups. Knight of Cups. This is all about following your heart. This is all about being open to follow where your heart is leading. And sometimes you've got to let your heart take the driver's seat and let your mind be the passenger. And not because you're here to ignore your mind. Heart and mind must always work in harmonious union. But like in anything where there's been a gross imbalance, sometimes a balance must be reset by having more focus on the thing that was ignored. That's the only way, right? So when we've lived our lives ignoring our hearts and choosing to overwrite what it is our hearts want, and our hearts are very much wired into the true desires of our souls, right? When we spend so much time ignoring our hearts and raising up our minds above them, right? Because we live in a world where you're supposed to be so intellectual, darling, right? So intelligent. You're so intelligent when you're able to use your mind in programmable ways, right? Wrong. You're smart when you're able to have the intelligence of knowing how to use information for decoding your heart. That's the ultimate form of intelligence. So yes, that's what I have for you. It's a long one, but I felt like I owed you guys a long one. I look forward to seeing some of you guys over the weekend. I do have a new decree that I just came out with last week. It's all about clearing out the parental karmic transference and ancestral karmic transference that is responsible for a lot of the trauma looping. It's about dealing with that. I will put the link for that below. I also came up, since the last time I saw you guys, another decree I came up with was the one very specifically for dealing with father wounds, especially as it comes to abandonment and rejection wounds from fathers, which actually, even if your father was present and lived in the home, it doesn't matter, it can still wound you. Their behaviors can still wound you because, in all frankness, men in the role of father in the false matrix were programmed on some level to reject their offspring. And we carry that deep-seated wound if we've dealt with it in really powerful ways. And sometimes people still carry that wound because at the end of the day, it's subjective. If your father doesn't show up in your life in the way that you need your father to be a father, that in and of itself is a wound, and that needs to be honored. Even if they did everything by the book that in the false matrix was right, if it harmed you, that's real. And that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed not for blame. It needs to be addressed so that you can come into your wholeness. And it's as simple as that. So I have a decree for that. And I will be working on a new decree this week. I'm quite excited about that. I don't know. I need to do a reading about this download I had that is like inspiring this decree. So maybe I'll get to that next. But I thank you so much for taking this journey with me. For all information on how to work with me, you can check me out on my website, solara.info. I do one-to-one soul recovery sessions and tarot astrology one-to-one, as well as audio tarot astrology readings. So if you'd like to book with me for a soul recovery, you can do directly through Ko-Fi for a 60 or 90-minute time slot with me. And for tarot astrology, you book with me directly by emailing me, and then we can correspond that way. Please be aware that there will be price changes in the next few weeks. So if you've been wanting to meet with me, have your tarot astrology done, there's no time like the present. What else? Yeah, I think that's it. If you would like to connect with me on a daily basis, you can do that through solara.xyz. I am going through a bit of a renaissance in that area. I will stay tuned. I will be telling you what's going on there. But this is where, in solara.xyz, is where I do my daily alchemy write-ups every single day for free. And then also I have a membership tier with more things going on there. So, yes. I think that's it. I'm sending you guys love. Thank you so much for all the ways that you love, celebrate, and support me and help me to show up in the world in my power and to rise into my new earth timelines. I do love and appreciate you, and I'm wishing for you all to graduate and to move past the pain stories, the pain timelines that have tried to keep you binded into personas and realities that never were your own. May you rise into full celebration, value of self. May you walk in that value, in that power, in that expression of your strength and your peace and your joy and your internal stability. And may everything in your reality start to reflect that back to you, because you are that first to yourself. I will see you again soon. Be well.